It's important that the agent does trust the information provided by the buyers, but it's also important that we verify it. So there's a bit of a funny saying amongst agents that buyers are liars, and that's because they want to try and get the price down as low as possible. And of course, the sellers want the highest price possible.
Welcome to the Selling Southport podcast. I'm Andrew Wright, Principal of Professionals Southport since 2008. Real estate isn't just my career, it's my passion. With decades of experience, I know what it takes to succeed in the property market, especially here in Southport. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, lease or invest, you can count on me and my team to deliver strategies that maximise your returns. Let's dive into today's episode and get you one step closer to your property goals.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Selling Southport. Now, if you've ever sold a home before, you know that one of the most nerve-wracking parts of the process is waiting to hear what buyers think after your open homes. You might hear things like, well, they like the property, but they think the price is too high, or they're still looking, or sometimes you hear nothing at all. So what does it all actually mean? Today we're going to break down what buyer feedback really means and how experienced agents actually use that information to guide the sales strategy. Joining me again is Andrew Wright from Professionals Southport. Now, Andrew, sellers can sometimes get nervous when they hear feedback, but the reality is it's actually very valuable in the entire process, isn't it?
Yeah, it's essential. So it's very easy for an agent to provide feedback, both positive and negative, on a property. But an agent is not going to know everything about the property. And a lot of the buyers that come through open homes may have been to 5 or 6 other comparable properties in the last 2 weeks alone, and they're in a better position to provide feedback than the agent.
That's a really good point, isn't it? Because agents do know the market, they do know the properties they've been through, but they're not going through other agents' properties. They could have been through 3 comparable properties the 3 hours before.
That's exactly right.
So they're often going to know more than you possibly even can.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And this is what market feedback is actually really means, isn't it? That what you actually hear and what comes back is what the market is telling you.
Exactly right. It's important that the agent does trust the information provided by the buyers, but it's also important that we verify it. So there's a bit of a funny saying amongst agents that buyers are liars, and that's because they want to try and get the price down as low as possible. And of course, the sellers want the highest price possible. So as an agent, if I have a buyer provide feedback that I went to one just down the road and it's sold for X, Y, Z and it's exactly the same, I'll generally verify that information by jumping on the computer on RP data and I'll have a look, and in some cases the figure they said was incorrect and it actually sold a little bit higher, and in other cases it wasn't exactly the same because it had a swimming pool in the one that sold, and
it's up and down, isn't it? And other times it's, well, how did they know? Well, their brother told them.
Yeah, exactly right.
And Chinese whispers, the price went up or down as it went. So I was going to say, not all feedback is completely reliable.
That's right. I mean, if you've got a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a swimming pool these days, and the one up the road didn't have a swimming pool, I mean, it used to be 15 to 20 grand to build a swimming pool. Now it's 100. So it does make a big difference, and you've got to verify the feedback from the buyers.
Fantastic. All right. Now, one of the most common pieces of feedback people might hear is, well, I like it, but the price feels a bit high. What does that actually mean?
Well, the first thing it means is that whether it's sincere or not, we don't know. But if they can verify that with other sales in the area, that it's very important that an agent provides that information to the seller, because if they don't adjust their pricing, the property will go stale and you'll lose competitive bidding for your property. So it's very, very important if an agent gets feedback on another recent sale that they provide that to the seller. Now, sometimes it takes about 6 weeks for sales data to come up on a computer. So when an agent does a sales appraisal, quite often the data's 6 weeks old and we may not have the latest couple of sales, and it might take a couple of weeks for that data to come out when we start a marketing campaign.
Yeah, it's a good point that data that the real estate industry is going off,
It lags.
and in a hot market that we've had over the last few years, that's actually not a reliable indicator of where it's actually moved in the 6 weeks it's taken to hit the internet.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes there might not have been any recent sales in the street. I mean, it might have been a kilometre away, but in the last, few weeks there might have been one or two sales that settled that are actually in the street. That provides a lot more practical, comparable data.
Yeah. What if you get a lot of, sort of generic feedback where people say, look, I'm interested, but I'm still going to have a look around, or I'm going to think about it?
Look, generally I'll say, well, look, understand, is there a price at which you'd be really excited to buy this property for right now? And that generally you'll
brings
find
out where they're actually at.
Where they're actually at, what they think the property's worth, or whether they're just a tire kicker and they're not actually serious about buying something, or just genuinely not ready to buy.
Okay. What does it mean when buyers say they liked another property better?
We have to ask them, why?
What was it?
Yeah, what was it? I mean, that's real feedback. Ask them exactly why they thought it was better.
Love that. How do you separate real, true feedback from the noise?
Well, as I said before, most buyers try and buy for as cheap as possible, and if there's any negative feedback there, generally I will ask a buyer, based on that feedback, what price are you happy to pay for this property, and try and get a written offer out of them. So if someone's saying any verbal price for a property that they think a property's worth, an agent should be saying, well, you're happy to sign a contract at that. And if they say, oh, no, I wouldn't buy it for that, well, that's not real feedback. So the best feedback for an owner is actually a written offer.
Yep. That's when you know it's real, it's tangible.
Exactly.
Everything else, there is potential ambiguity.
Absolutely.
Yep. Makes sense. How do you actually use the feedback you get from buyers to guide a campaign?
Well, generally on a Monday morning, we'll provide a written report, and that written report will say how many people we had through a property. It will start off with the positive feedback, things that the market liked about the property, and then there'll be a list of negative things or things that they didn't like about the property. So I just sold a property in Parkwood a couple of weeks ago, which had a pre-settlement today, and one of the bits of feedback on that house was that even though it was 800 square metres of land, there was no front fence, and a lot of the 800 metres was lost in the front footpath that wasn't fenced, and the driveway couldn't be used, and on the side of the house there was a big retaining wall and a garden, and even though 800 metres sounds like a reasonable block of land, there was only a very, very small courtyard at the back of the house, and there wasn't actually much usable land. Now, I didn't even pick that up when I initially inspected the house. I just thought, oh, it's a decent chunk of land. But it's true, when I went back, a lot of it is walking up to the front door through a driveway and
unusable.
Unusable, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, what's your final key takeaway for sellers when it comes to buyer feedback?
Look, if you've got multiple offers on the table, you're probably not going to worry too much about negative feedback. But in a tough market, or if your property's been on the market a while, you need to react to buyer feedback and reflect it in the price or the marketing.
Pivot, whichever way is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whichever the direction it's leading.
That's right.
Fantastic, Andrew. Once again, some great advice, because a lot of people, it's an emotional journey, isn't it, selling a home, and taking on feedback, not always an easy thing to do when you're selling your biggest asset. So I think what you've mentioned here today is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I think one other little funny story I want to add there, Adam, is that you can't just listen to the agent's feedback, because agents sometimes are wrong. And I remember the first property I ever sold in Southport 20 years ago was this single young lady who sold a 2-bedroom apartment. The whole apartment was painted pink. And I thought, oh my God, this is never going to sell. Sure enough, I had the first 30 buyers I had through there. Oh, this is terrible. It's painted pink. And then all of a sudden, another lady from a similar demographic came in, a young single lady, and said, oh, I love this colour, and she just went and bought it.
Wow.
So don't listen to the agent's
Yep.
feedback. You've got to listen to the market.
For sure, for sure. Thanks once again for listening to Selling Southport. If you're thinking about selling and want to understand how buyers are really responding to your property, Andrew is always happy to have a conversation and guide you through the process. Do reach out, Andrew at professionalssouthport.com.au. Do subscribe, do share this podcast with anyone looking to buy or sell anywhere. That's just great advice, whether you're using Andrew in Southport or not. But once again, Andrew, thank you so much and look forward to catching you on the next episode.
Thanks, Adam.